And consider it that way.
I thank the Secretary of State and colleagues. Point of order, points of order all round. Point of order, Andrew Gwynn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In health questions, I used a figure for nurse redundancies in my question. It would appear that the Minister gave an incorrect figure in his reply by inadvertently including midwifery and health visitors within his figure and not just solely nurse redundancies. If this is correct, Mr. Speaker, can we please ask the Minister to correct the record?
The Minister is literally falling over himself to do so. We must hear from the Minister.
Well, hopefully not falling over, Mr. Speaker. Would it be useful to the House if I corrected the Shadow Minister's misapprehension? What I said and what I stand by is that the latest figures for the NHS workforce for full-time working equivalents is that there are, since May 2010, 2,693, that's the figure that I gave, Mr. Speaker, fewer qualified nursing staff. This comes from the category in the workforce statistics headed qualified nursing staff, which includes, as the chorus are echoing, midwives and health visiting staff.
I'm reassured that the Minister of State hasn't fallen over, and I think we are all better informed. What we can't have, and I'm sure nobody would seek, is a rerun of health questions, but we've had the clarification for which we're grateful. Point of order, Sir Bob Russell.
Speaker, have you had any requests from a Defence Minister to come to the House to explain today's contemptible announcement of making 4,100 members of Her Majesty's Armed Forces redundant, around a third of them compulsory, and as bearing on that 2,900 of them from the Army, I'm interested to know whether any of them are from 16 Air Assault Brigade, Colchester Garrison, who little over a year ago were fighting, putting their lives on the line in Afghanistan. Is there going to be a ministerial statement?
No. But knowing the honourable gentleman as I've done for the last 15 years since we entered the House together, I have just a hunch that it is a matter to which the honourable gentleman will return, possibly with a notable frequency. I'm getting there. A lot, indeed. Point of order, Mr. Alec Shelbrooke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it would appear that this afternoon that the Right Honourable Member for Doncaster, the leader of the Labour Group, Labour Party, has accused the Right Honourable Member for Kirkcaldy of perjuring himself yesterday. Is it in order, Mr. Speaker, of members who sit in this House, who are members of the Privy Council, to make such accusations without explaining themselves to yourself or this House?
I'm not aware of any such accusation having been made, and immediately the honourable gentleman has raised his point of order. He's sat down with a very bright grin on his face. So I will take his remarks as having been made in a spirit of levity, upon which no further comment is required. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the main business. The clerk will now proceed to read the orders of the day. Order. Point of order, Mr. Greg Mulholland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier I raised the awful case of the Prenger family with Fran Prenger in a Greek jail. To my astonishment yesterday, I discovered that MPs' parliamentary offices cannot phone numbers abroad. So I was unable to phone embassy and consular staff in Greece, I was unable to contact the family, and unable to speak to the office of Edward Macmillan Scott MEP, who was also assisting in this case. This is clearly an absurdity to have to get my constituency office to make calls that I want to be making myself from London. Could this be addressed as a matter of urgency?
Well, to the honourable gentleman for his point of order, the matter is one to be taken up with the director of PICT, and I am happy to do so, and then to refer to the honourable gentleman as quickly as I can. He's raised a pertinent point, and it requires a timely response, and I hope it will be to his satisfaction. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the main business.
I'll write to the honourable gentleman, Mr. Speaker.
Well, it's always fascinating to hear the views of the honourable gentleman, but his point of order will have to wait. We're in the middle of the statement, and that actually is more important than the honourable gentleman's point of order. Difficult it may be to persuade him of that important fact. Helen Grant. I'm grateful to the Secretary of State and colleagues. Before we proceed to the main business, I feel sure the House will want to hear the point of order of the honourable gentleman, the member for Cheltenham, of which he was very fewer than 5 minutes ago. Let's hear it.
The point of order was simply to explain that the question did not relate to whether or not the reactor cores could be adapted for use in Vanguard-class successor subs, but that actually the reactors announced today are for use in the Vanguard successors and therefore could be used even if they did not carry nuclear warheads.
Now, may I further to that point of order, Mr. Speaker? Now I understand the honourable gentleman's point. Of course, this is about a propulsion system, and the reactors are independent of what type of missiles the submarine might carry.
Greatly enlightened by that clarification. But I would simply say to the honourable member for Cheltenham that if his essential complaint that the answer didn't relate to his question were to form the basis for subsequent points of order, our proceedings would become very heavily extended indeed. We'll leave it there for now, and I would say that the clerk will now proceed, as we proceed to main business, to read the orders of the day. We shall shortly come to, in fact, I think we were going to come to presentation of bills, but not before a point of order from the honourable gentleman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During work and pensions questions, the Right Honourable Member for Epsom, in reply to a question from my Right Honourable friend from East Ham, said that he had not been rebuked by the UK Statistics Authority for misusing statistics. The Right Honourable Member's memory may have failed him, Mr. Speaker, but he was chastised for using misleading stats on nationality and national insurance data, work capability appeal statistics and, whilst in opposition, violent crime. Mr. Speaker, how can the record be corrected?
Well, I think the honourable gentleman has just done it, and I hope he'll rest content with his efforts. If there are no further points of order. Point of order, Mary Cray.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, during yesterday's urgent question on flooding, I asked the Environment Secretary what support Calderdale Council could expect to receive under the Bellwyn scheme to both fund its emergency response and its recovery effort. In her reply to me, the Environment Secretary said the trigger for the Bellwyn formula is 15% of a local authority's income. Mr. Speaker, that didn't sound quite right to me, so I went to the House of Commons Library and discovered that the trigger is in fact just 0.2% of a council's annual income, which then triggers a reimbursement from central government of 85% of the costs incurs. Can I ask, would you like to invite the Secretary of State to comment and correct the record on this matter?
Well, clearly this is a key point in the mind of the Shadow Secretary of State, and as the Secretary of State is with us and literally on the edge of her seat, let her come to the box and respond if she so wishes.
Mr. Speaker, it just shows, I think, what we all know in the House, that when it's not your departmental brief, then you actually probably shouldn't venture an opinion. She has informed the House where the 15% figure comes from that was in my mind when answering urgent questions. It is the amount that is then dispersed to the local authority. But I have taken the matter up with the Department of Communities and Local Government. What matters here is the Council gets help if it's entitled to it.
Hear, hear.
Well, we're grateful to the Secretary of State for that acknowledgement and explanation, which is very helpful. Point of order, Dr. Julian Lewis.
Although sadly, Mr. Speaker, the Deputy Prime Minister is no longer with us, corporeally at any rate, I was concerned, as I trust you were, at the widespread reports that in the weekend press that he had vetoed any prospect of there being a referendum on the possible introduction of a proportional representation voting system for elections to a reformed upper house. Given the constitutional importance of such an issue, and given the motivation which is clearly designed to help the Liberal Democrats retain a permanent stranglehold on future legislative processes, should not such announcements actually be made to this House initially rather than via the media?
Well, that was a scintillating polemic for the House to savour. But what I would say to the honourable gentleman, whom I've known for 29 years this October, is that the logic of his attempted point of order is compelling, but it suffers as a point of order from the disadvantage that the premise upon which the logic has been built is, in fact, in my judgment, misplaced. And the reason why I say that to the honourable gentleman is that the Deputy Prime Minister was not announcing a change of government policy. He was, as far as I can tell, merely reiterating the status quo. That will have to do for now. But all of these matters will doubtless be explored eloquently in detail and at length in the upcoming debates on House of Lords reform, to which I fancy the honourable member for New Forest East will himself wish to contribute. If there are no further points of order, we come now to the main business, Opposition Day, the third allotted day.